All right, so let's get started with this learning program. Let me share my screen and just begin by introducing who I am. So I was a Teach for India fellow in 2013, and I worked in Pune and continue to teach for 2 more years post my fellowship. Currently, I work with Avasara Academy as a consultant on science teacher education. And pedagogical content knowledge of science and professional development are my areas of interest. I really enjoy learning about them and more. And I wish to learn more about metacognitive practices to improve the learning and teaching of science. That's something that I'm exploring and something that I'm looking forward to learn more about. Okay, moving on to sorry, just give me a minute. Yeah, moving on to what Avasara Academy is. It's basically a school in Pune with an aim to educate girls of exceptional promise for a lifetime of leadership. We have always had a big focus of STEM in our curriculum. We've operated within open school policy, and so that's why we keep it open for all educators to come and see our classes, to come and visit our school. And in this year, basically, what we're doing. Sorry. And in this year, the way we are taking forward our aim of being an open school policy is that we are running this professional development program where we share our understanding of the pedagogy of science. What is it that we have learned about teaching science? Okay. To begin with, let's start with an introductory activity which is related to science. I'm going to ask you to share with us any of these three prompts on a website called Padlet. What you have to do is I'm going to paste the link which is here in the chat box. And when you click on that link, you'll come to a page like this. And over here, you can let us know any of the three anecdotes by sharing them. You can either add them by clicking on the plus sign, or you can just double click and add your answers over here. All right, so now I'm going to stop sharing my screen and share the link of the Padlet in the chat box and hopefully hear from all of you some interesting stories about your science teaching. Okay, so let's come back to the session and go ahead with this webinar. And I'm going to share my screen so that the presentation is visible. All right. Okay, so the agenda for today's webinar is basically we finished the first part, which is who are we, and then we are going to discuss the structure of the program. We are going to discuss how you're going to engage with the program. Then there will be a small query resolution to and fro, and then we just end this session with a guiding principle of science education. All right, so let's move on to the next part of this session, which is the structure of the program. Before that, let me just reiterate some of the quick norm settings. Keep yourself on mute to avoid any noise. Kindly use the chat box if you have any queries. And if a person is sharing their opinion and you wish to add, kindly let them finish speaking and then share your ideas. All right, so let's begin with the Avasara Science Educator Development Program. The first thing I want to share with you about this program is what are the foundational ideas behind which all the content, whether synchronous or asynchronous, has been designed. Okay, and so basically the entire program runs with these two separate but interconnectedly operating themes of PCK and CPD. And what these are, we'll explore as we go further into the session and throughout the program as well. The aim has been to build science teachers' capacity and capability of teaching science. Okay. So PCK basically stands for Pedagogical Content Knowledge. This was an idea proposed by researcher Louis Schulman in all the way back in 1970. And it basically highlights this dichotomy that exists between pedagogical knowledge, which is how you teach something, and the content knowledge, which is what you have to teach. So it's a mixture of subject matter knowledge and pedagogical content knowledge. And when it's placed in a different context, the PCK of science doesn't necessarily change. It just basically adapts to that context. And that's why this idea is really important. It's not that you can replicate it in different settings, but you can contextualize and then basically improve the way you're teaching in your classroom. All right. Let's address a question that will help us clarify a little bit about why do we need to know about PCK. So I think this is a question that most of you must have, and now I feel like taught in your science classes as well, and must have read in your science classes. Which color of clothing is advised to be worn in a warm weather and why? You're going to have 30 seconds to formulate your answer. You can write it in the chat box if you want to. You can write it down on a piece of paper if you wish to, or you can just memorize it in your head. And then I will basically ask someone to share what their answer is. Okay, so the question is, which color of clothing is advised to be worn in a warm weather and why? I'm going to post this question in the chat and then give you some time to think about the answer and then share what the answer is. Please don't write your answers in the chat and share them. Okay, so the correct answer actually is that it doesn't matter. I would say, although not because of the reason that was shared recently about it, the colors black and white do absorb electromagnetic radiation. And whether it is infrared or visible light, both of them fall under the electromagnetic spectrum. So they do get absorbed. What Adwaita had shared before, her answer was partly correct that yes, you should wear woolen clothes in winter, but actually the color does not really matter because black absorbs more heat from the sun and from your body as well, and white reflects more heat to the surroundings and back to your body as well. So if you're wearing white on a hot day, it will reflect the heat out to the surroundings, but it will reflect your body heat back to you as well. So therefore, it doesn't really work. What actually matters is the material, preferably cotton, and ventilation, which is a loose fit. So I would say, Adwaita, your answer was partially correct. Yes, the type of clothes you wear definitely matters, but the color, not so much. I'm also going to share at the end of the meeting, at the end of the session, the sources from where you can just basically cross-check this information. Okay, so the entire reason why I had this question on this session was to show to you why pedagogical content knowledge of science really matters. We have learned, I mean, I definitely had learned in my school when I was younger that we should always wear white in the summer, but that's not necessarily true once you know more about how these colors interact with the electromagnetic radiation. Okay. There's one other thing that I want to address over here. It's a really small thing, but something that happened right now, and I would really encourage you to do it in your class as well. Every time you ask a question openly in the class, always ensure that you have enough wait time. Give your students about 30 seconds to share, to formulate their answer and to think about what is it they're going to respond to. There should not be any hand raising in the classroom. What it basically does is that it gives a chance to the students who know the answer to be very participative, which is great. That's we want to encourage that. But it gives an opportunity for the students who are not so confident about their answers to sort of just shy away and not participate in the class, ultimately resulting in them not being able to learn the concept. So don't have hand raising in the class unless you're asking, okay, how many of you have understood, or how many you have a doubt in this question. But when you ask an academic question, try to not have your students raise their hands, but instead just stick to cold calling or intentional calling, depending upon what your choice is. Okay, so as I said, PCK, which is the pedagogical content knowledge, it does not change, but it adapts in a different context. Okay, now there's a check for understanding question. For this question, what I want you to do is you will type your answer in the chat box and you will press enter only when I request you to. That way, we will have everybody's answers in at the same time, making sure that we get what their authentic thought about this question is. All right, this is a very simple question. We've just covered it. What are the two aspects of teaching and learning that PCK combines? I'm going to stop sharing my screen, post this question in the chat, then give everyone about 30 seconds to 1 minute to type in their answer. And then when I say enter, press enter. Please press enter at that time. Okay, so let me post the question in the chat. All right, the question is in the chat. What are the two aspects of teaching and learning that PCK combines? Please don't type it. Just type in your answer and don't share them. When I ask you to press enter, only then share your answers. So just keep your answers ready in the chat box. And when I say, please press enter now, press enter at that time, and we'll get to know everybody's responses at the same time. Let's take 10 more seconds for everyone to write their answers. And in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, please press enter so that we can read everybody's answers. Okay, I can see a lot of answers coming in. Pedagogy and content. Um, Someone shared how to teach and what to teach, which is a very good explanation of pedagogical content knowledge. The why and the how exactly. Thank you. Okay, it seems that we have grasped the concept of what pedagogical content knowledge is. As we go ahead in this program, you will see that all the tasks in this week and further are designed keeping around what are some of the important pedagogical content knowledge of science that science teachers should have to practice in their classroom. All right, let's move forward. May I please request everyone to be on mute so that we can avoid any noise? Thank you very much. Okay, let's share my screen and let's continue. All right, so as a lot of you shared, the two aspects of teaching and learning that PCK combines are pedagogical knowledge and content knowledge, the what and the how of teaching. The other idea that is a foundational piece in designing this program is CPD, which is a continuous professional development. A holistic commitment of professionals towards the enhancement of personal skills and proficiency throughout their course. It is no unknown knowledge that CPD for teachers, especially in the profession of teaching, is very rare and not often of very high quality. And so, therefore, a lot of the weight of continuous professional development falls on the teacher itself. About why CPT is important. I thought about writing something, but then I realized that all of you are attending this webinar, so you clearly realize the importance of CPT. So I'm not going to share why it is important, but instead I would share a very important idea about CPD. The two requirements to sustain CPD are reflection and a professional community. The word in to focus here is sustain. This webinar or this particular learning path is just one of the many steps that you take and have already taken in making sure that you become a better science educator. And so you have to make sure that you engage with these professional development programs as often as possible for you. And the two processes that make sure that a CPD goes on for a teacher are reflection and a professional community. If you have a group of educators with whom you can reflect upon your practice, upon their practice, that is going to be the best way to learn how you get better at teaching science in your own classroom. Okay. In this program, there are 6 aspects over which we will go through and learn about continuous professional development. I'm going to let this be on the screen for a minute so that you can read what these 6 aspects are, and then we can move forward. Okay, if you wish to learn more about them, you can learn them through this research paper. This is basically where the idea comes from. I will share with the research paper also in the chat box when we finish the session. Okay, so we will be focusing on these 6 aspects of professional learning. And what we are going to be doing is that each week we would take one of these aspects, learn about what are the performance indicators, how do you know how it is getting manifested in your classroom, reflect on those with yourself, with your learning peer, and then basically see how you can become better at professionalism, professional knowledge, instructional planning, and so on. Okay. There are 3 key expected outcomes from this program. The first one is learning to teach science. Pretty obvious. The second one is learning science. One of the ways that you improve your PCK is by learning the content knowledge as well. So one of the other things that's going to be happening is learning science together. And the last thing would be learning to learn. How do you know? How do you sort of learn to sustain that professional development, to instill that sense of continuous professional development within yourself and your community? Okay, so that brings me to the end of the second thing on the agenda, which is the structure of the program. So you have an idea about the entire learning path for 6 weeks. What are some of the main key points which would be coming up and about in the content that we are going to be engaging with. Now we come to what the engagement of the program will look like. So basically the how of the Avasara Science Educator Development Program. There will be pedagogical theories that you would learn. I suppose some of you would already know about these things. For some of you, it might be new. This is just one of the pedagogical theories that would come out later, I guess in week 3 or week 4. There will be tasks that you would attend, and there will be review-based rubrics shared with you on which those tasks would be reviewed, and I can give you feedback on that. There will be research papers that we will be reading and engaging with. There will be synchronous science classes happening. This is where the learning science part really comes alive. And all of this content would basically happen through a Google Classroom. Okay, just to reiterate the main points of this entire program, it's 12 hours long, spread over 6 weeks, so 2 hours every week. Out of those 12 hours, 4 will be synchronous sessions of 1 hour each, one of which is happening right now. And the remaining 8 will have asynchronous work. There will be 2 course tracks, basic and advanced. And now I will share with you the Google Classroom so that you get an idea about what this course is and how it is going to move forward. All right, in the meantime, if there are any questions, I would request you to either type in the chat or unmute yourself and let me know by the time I set up sharing my screen with the Google Classroom. Thank you. All right, if there are no questions, we're going to move forward in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, there's one question from, okay, let me just take a minute to read the questions and then I can address those. All right, so the first question is it going to happen every Monday, the synchronous session? No, Shatabdi, the synchronous sessions are going to be happening on Thursday from now onwards. So there are 3 more synchronous sessions left, and all 3 of them will happen on a Thursday, the date of which I will share with you over an email, and also at the end of this session, I'll share with you when the next one is happening. Yes, Suhani, I will explain to you the difference between basic and advanced tracks. All the resources will be provided to you, and you can access them on the Google Classroom. The way you will access them is through an ID. That's all of those processes what I'm going to take you through now when I share my screen. Manish has asked, is there any MS shared on work later? I'm not sure what MS implies here. Manish, could you tell me what MS means? Anuradha has asked, are there programs for other tracks? Currently, we have it only for science. As soon as we develop the expertise for some other subjects as well, we'll include them. Okay, MS means marking scheme. Yes, there will be marking scheme on the work that you submit. So the rubric that I share with you will show you what basically our full marks on this particular assignment would look like, what is the kind of work you have to produce, and then using that rubric, I will review your work and share with you what your marks are. Zainab has asked, if we are unable to attend a session, will we get the recording? I suppose so, yes. All the sessions would be recorded, and I believe that Anu later would be able to share with you, and all these sessions would be available on YouTube, I presume. So you would be able to access them afterwards. It would be highly encouraged that you attend the synchronous session while it's happening, because that's the best time you can get any of your issues or doubts clarified, or just thought partner with the people who are in the session. All right, this is the last question I would take, and then we'll come back to sharing the screen and explaining what it looks like. So Shafali has asked, can you please explain synchronous and asynchronous again? Yeah, sure. So what I will do, Shafali, as I share my screen with you, you will get an idea of what the asynchronous work will look like, and then I will tell you what the synchronous work would look like, so that we get an idea about how to engage with each of these. All right. Okay, so let me go back to sharing my screen and showing to you what the content how the Google Classroom looks like. All right. So this is the student view of your Google Classroom that you will be a part of. As you can see, the first thing here is week 1.R2. This is week 1.R1. Every week there are 2 hours of engagement. This is week 1.R2, which is an asynchronous content. So when you log into the Google Classroom, you would basically see what are the tasks that you're supposed to do in that particular week. I will be sharing with you a particular email ID and password to be able to join the Google Classroom. And when you join the Google Classroom, this is the view that you will see. You go onto the classwork and you see what is the work that you're supposed to do in which week. So let me just go through 1 week's work over here. So week 1.R1 is happening right now. After this, you go on to week 1.R2. R2 has 5 tasks and they are numbered here as A, B, C, D, and E. So let's open 1.2.A, which is titled Mastering Remote Teaching, and see what it is. All right. I'm going to give 30 seconds for you to just read what the instructions are over here and then explain to you what this is and what the other tasks would be like. So 30 seconds, please just read what the instructions are and then we'll move forward. All right, let's come back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so as you must have read that this particular brief of every task will tell you why you are doing a particular task, what the task is, and how you're supposed to do it. All right, so this is basically a reading from Doug Limov's blog of Teach Like a Champion on mastering remote teaching. This is something that all of us are facing right now, and so I felt that this would be a good starting point for us to move forward with. So once you read this, attempt the task that's there. It might be a video to watch, it might be an article to read, it might be something to comment on. Once you're finished with the task, please click on mark as done, because unless this happens, I won't be able to know if someone has completed and I won't be able to review your work. So in order to make sure that we have a good back and forth with the feedback on your work, please make sure to click mark as done once you're finished with the task. You can leave a private comment for the instructor if you want to. You can leave a public comment for the class. If you want to, other people can do a back and forth on the comments as well. If there is a work required for you to submit something, you can just add or create that, upload your file, and then basically mark as done. All right, so this was 1.2.a. Let me just take you very quickly through what the rest of this R looks like. So I go back to my classroom, week 1.R2. We just looked at 1.2.a. After you finish this, I think this would be about 10 minutes of engagement. You move on to 1.2.b. Again, we do the same thing, view the assignment, read about the description of the task, engage with the task, and then click on mark as done and come back and start with 1.2.c. All right, over here, actually, this would be a video for you to watch. So you watch this video, and then basically the reflection on this would come on to the next task, which is 1.2.d. Over here, if you see the assignment, you would be able to see that there's a Google form you have to fill, which is on reflection. Once you click on it, it'll open the Google form for you. Enter the questions that are asked, your responses to the questions that are asked, and then you basically finish 1.2.d. All right. One other thing I wanted to mention to everyone is that at the end of every week, there will be a last task called weekly feedback. Now, this is really important data, and I would encourage you to make sure that once you have completed the task for a particular week, please enter your feedback on this form. It basically lets me know whether the task was useful for you, whether the task was engaging for you. Is there any use of this? Are you finding any use of this in your classroom? And that will basically help us design the content, or like basically tweak the content a little bit for the next weeks so that they can cater more to the context that you're teaching in. All right, so that's basically your engagement with the asynchronous content. Now you would see that it also says week 1.adv, and this is the advanced track. Every week there will be week one of the ADV tasks. So it will be week 1.adv, week 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. The two tracks that you can take for this program are either a basic track or an advanced track. In a basic track, you basically attempt all the asynchronous content which comes under week 1.R2, week 2.R3, R4, R5. So each of those would have a particular R and a week number attached to them. If you wish to pursue the advanced track, what I would suggest is that once you finish the weekly and the hourly work of that particular week, you can attempt the advanced task, which would be basically that content asking you to engage at a little bit higher level. It'll be a little bit more rigorous, and you can open that again. We do the same thing. You view your assignment, read the instructions, attempt this, and then mark as done so that I can leave feedback. At the end of this program, as you know already, there would be course completion certificates shared with you. And if you choose to complete a basic track, you get a course completion certificate of a basic track. If you wish to get a course completion certificate for an advanced track, the requirement is that you should complete at least 4 of the 6 advanced tasks. There would be one advanced task in each week, and the requirement is that you complete at least 4 out of 6 of those. All right. Let me just share one more thing, and then we can open up to questions and see if there's anything that someone wants to clarify. All right. So that was the asynchronous content as to how it will happen on the Google Classroom. The synchronous sessions would be like they're happening right now. I would also be hosting what at Avasara we call office hours. So what we do is we ask our students that, at this particular time of the day during this hour, I'm going to be hosting an office hour. And what you can do is that is just a collaborative learning, remote learning space. And so for 1 hour, we sit together and work. If there are any questions that any of my students have, they ask me at that time. If there's something that they want to thought partner about, that's a really good space because both of us are in that working zone. And so that's one practice that we want to do in this program as well. And so I will be hosting office hours every week. And because this engagement is of 1 hour, you can choose to do your work, the entire work of the week actually in that office hour, or you can just choose to discuss something at a little bit higher rigor, or if there's something that you want to explore a little bit further, I will be on the call, and then we can just basically find the space to do this. Every week, I will share with you a link and the time as to when this office hour is happening, and then we can basically participate in that. This one is completely optional and choice-based. All right, so that finishes the third part of the agenda, which is engagement with the program. Let's move on to query resolution. If there are any questions about the program or how to engage with it, I'm going to just look at the chat box to take any questions. Once we resolve those queries, then we move forward with the next part of the webinar. All right, so what I'm going to do is, as these questions come in, try and address them so that we can basically reach out to as many people as possible in terms of query resolution. All right, so Sangeeta has asked, are we going to learn some tools for remote learning? Yes, so because everyone is remote teaching right now, all the synchronous sessions that you have, all the practices that I would do in the science lessons that I'm conducting, all the asynchronous content would be in a way so that they can be executed in a remote setting. However, we are all hoping that this is an emergency remote teaching situation and this does not continue. So the content that I will put out throughout this program is not going to be applicable only to remote teaching, but these are basically pedagogical ideas that are applicable in your classroom settings as well. So yes, we will look at how this can happen in a remote setting, but that's not the main idea per se of the course. Thank you, Sangeeta. There's another question. Can other teachers join this session? Well, would you mean other subject teachers? I don't think it would be very helpful for them, honestly, because this is dedicated to science teaching. And basically, after this webinar, we would have a finalized shortlisted list of candidates who would go for the 6 weeks of the program. And we conduct this cohort with those teachers. If other science teachers wish to join, they can basically apply in the next cohort. But subject teachers, I don't think it would be very helpful to them. Thank you. All right, Bhumika has asked, what is the timeline to finish R1 of week 1? Is it before next Thursday? So that's a really good question. Thank you for bringing that up, Bhumika. The timeline for now, we are keeping, Sunday to Sunday. So let's say we started this program today. This is the week 1 R1. The deadline to complete week 1 R2 is Sunday night. By Sunday night, please make sure that you find 1 hour, complete week 1 or 2, and then you basically move forward to week 2. So right now it is Sunday to Sunday, Sunday to Sunday. Yeah, if we feel that we need to change it, we'll take a poll and we'll probably do it later. But I feel Sunday to Sunday keeps a good week in function. Thank you. All right, Manish has asked, is there any minimum requirement to be fulfilled for this course? There's a minimum requirement to fulfill the completion of this course, Manish, which are the 2 tracks, basic and advanced. If the minimum requirement to complete the basic track is to attempt all the tasks in a week for the hour that are posted there, and the minimum requirement for getting an advanced certificate would be to complete all the basic plus at least 4 out of the 6 tasks that are there. Manish, can you let me know if I've answered your question correctly? Zainab has asked, any grades will do. I think with science teaching, I would recommend teachers teaching grade 3 and above. However, the content that we are going to be very specifically focusing on is SSC content grade 6 to 10. There are some other teachers I know who are not necessarily teaching SSC content, and I would reach out to them personally to just sort of understand what their context of operation is and to make sure that the content reaches out to them. But I would say anyone teaching grade 3 and above, grade 3 to grade 10, would be a good fit for this program, would benefit from this program, and would help all of us learn a little bit more. Bonita has asked, do we select either of the courses before we start, basic or advanced? No, it's not at all time limit. You can choose to, the moment you complete 4 out of the 6 advanced tasks, in addition to the basic ones, that's it. You have completed the advanced course as well. You can take this decision in the beginning of the course. You can take this decision in the middle of the course, or at the end. The requirement being that you complete 4 out of the 6 tasks. All right. Amandeep has asked, can you share complete information of the course in email? Amandeep, could you tell me a little bit more about what information you're seeking about the course? This is a bit difficult for me to understand what exactly you're seeking. So if you could tell me, that would be helpful. And Saurabh has asked, any prerequisites in particular to be equipped with? I think one of the things we shared was it would be good for teachers who have taught for at least 2 years. The rigor would be a little bit high for beginning teachers because there are research papers that we are engaging with, there are pedagogical theories that you're trying to understand and then implement in your classroom, and then basically attempting tasks and doing all of this while you're teaching science in your classroom as well. So as such, there are no prerequisites knowledge wise or this thing, but I only assume that we think that a person with 2 years or more experience would benefit more from this class. We haven't kept that as a filter because they can be really good teachers in their first year as well, and I don't want to discourage them from joining this. But at a general level, I would say 2 years of experience would be helpful. Okay. Okay, Amandeep, regarding basic and advanced course. Okay, so let me reiterate this, maybe giving a little bit more clarity on what is in those courses. In a basic course, you would have 1 hour of work posted every week and 2 hours of work posted every week when there is no synchronous session happening. The tasks would be around, so you saw the first week, which is around remote learning. That's how we are starting. As we move forward, the tasks would be around, so let's say how to bring constructivism in classroom, how to bring dialogic teaching in your classroom, discussing ideas around strategies like predict, observe, explain, and then basically dual coding and things like that. So those will be, it's a long list, so I can't explain to you all those things. but basically ideas of science teaching that will come up in both basic and advanced. Advanced would be just that content at a little bit higher level. I hope I addressed your question, Amandeep. Thank you. Zainab, yes, basic is mandatory and advanced is based on a choice. Um, okay. Let me just reply to one of the questions. All right, I am not receiving any more questions. I'm just going to take 10 seconds for seeing if there are any new questions coming in, address them, and then we basically move on to the last bit of this session. So 10 seconds, let's just see if there are more questions coming in. Okay, so we've covered all these four parts of the agenda, and I wanted to finish today's session with one guiding principle of science education. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that on the screen and give you about 2 minutes to 3 minutes to read what that is and reflect on what does it mean in your own context of teaching. Whether if you're a science teacher, how does this how does this particular principle come alive in your classroom? If you are a teacher educator, how does this particular principle apply to you? And basically just sort of reflect on this one guiding principle. So I'm going to share it and keep quiet for 2 to 3 minutes, read it and reflect on how it comes in your own practice.